U.S. Justice Department has released a fresh tranche of records linked to disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein, expanding an initial disclosure made a day earlier under a new transparency law signed by President Donald Trump. The newly published material, accessible on the Justice Department's website, which includes photographs, investigative documents, travel records, and grand jury transcripts. However, large portions of the files remain heavily redacted, limiting public insight into the full scope of the evidence gathered by federal investigators. Among the most significant disclosures are grand jury testimonies from April 2007, stemming from a federal probe in West Palm Beach, Florida. One witness, a 21-year-old woman at the time of her testimony, described how she was first introduced to Epstein as a teenager through acquaintances she met at a beach resort. According to the transcript, she was offered money in exchange for providing massages to Epstein, with explicit conditions involving nudity and sexual contact. The woman testified that she was later encouraged to recruit other girls, many of them minors, in return for cash payments. Her testimony described a system in which higher payments were linked to greater levels of sexual compliance, while those who resisted were relegated to recruiting others instead. The woman told the grand jury that Epstein's longtime associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, played a central role in facilitating the encounters. She said Maxwell arranged appointments, coordinated logistics, and at times personally escorted girls into massage rooms at Epstein's Palm Beach residence. The witness claimed she brought between 7 and 10 girls to Epstein, most of them between the ages of 16 and 18, including at least one who was 14. She also testified that Epstein rejected anyone he considered too old, reinforcing the focus on underage victims. These allegations were presented to the grand jury years before Epstein ultimately reached a controversial plea deal in 2008, allowing him to avoid federal prosecution by pleading guilty to state-level prostitution charges, according to court records. The newly released files also shed further light on the criminal case against Maxwell, who was convicted in New York in 2021 on 5 of 6 federal counts related to sex trafficking and conspiracy. Prosecutors relied heavily on testimony from multiple survivors who said Maxwell actively participated or enabled Epstein's abuse. According to FBI testimony presented to a federal grand jury in 2019, victims described Maxwell as a trusted figure who normalized the abuse, sometimes praising girls after Epstein assaulted them. One survivor recounted being flown internationally with Epstein and described incidents that continued even after she turned 18, including being pressured into role-play scenarios involving a schoolgirl outfit, an item later recovered from Epstein's New York mansion by law enforcement. Additional records released by the Justice Department include handwritten messages, call logs, and notes referencing women being available for Epstein, as well as communications about work arrangements. One undated message indicates that Donald Trump contacted Epstein at a specific time, though no context or substance of the call is provided. Other names in the messages were largely redacted. Investigators emphasized that redactions were applied to protect victims' identities and comply with laws governing grand jury secrecy and child sexual abuse material. Despite the volume of material released, victims' advocates and some lawmakers have criticized the disclosures as incomplete, arguing extensive redactions obscure accountability.
Just put out the files and stop redacting names that don't need to be redacted. It's just, who are we trying to protect? Are we protecting the survivors, or are we protecting these elite men that need to be put out there? And people need to know these are predators that are in the files. They need to be brought to justice so they can stop doing this in the long run. It's for everyone's safety at the end of the day. I haven't gone through all of it, so I don't want to speak. I don't want to say the wrong things, but I do understand that also a lot of um, important, people have been redacted from it. And the whole process of being transparent was to only redact the survivors and the victims' names. So here we are right where we started with the first files. These names that need to be put out there, people need to know about these people, have been redacted. So it's a little bit confusing. I feel like, again, the DOJ, the justice system, is failing us. In the beginning, they were calling us a hoax, right? They were like saying that we were a hoax. And now they're like, we believe you. We're going to release the files. But yet you still haven't released the files and it's not even full transparent. So it's very nice to say it, but it's also nice to actually do it.
The Justice Department has maintained that further documents will be released after additional legal review. As CBS News reported, officials insist the process balances transparency with legal obligations, even as public scrutiny of Epstein's network and the handling of his case continues years after his death.
The long-awaited release of the Epstein files was supposed to bring clarity. Instead, it has raised even more questions, because buried inside this massive document dump is something that shouldn't be possible. Social media has erupted after a file that contained a photograph of Donald Trump with Jeffrey Epstein suddenly vanished. Several, including influencer Ed Krasenstein, took to X reporting that the file photo, published on Friday by the Department of Justice, was quietly removed by Saturday morning. The file featured an image of a desk and drawer containing a photo of Trump with several unidentified women. The document, labeled EFT 000000468.pdf, is now missing from Dataset 1 of DOJ's Epstein library. No explanation, no clarification, just gone. That disappearance comes as the Justice Department quietly released yet another batch of Epstein materials hours after an already massive disclosure. More than 120 new photos were posted, most showing FBI evidence boxes, envelopes, hard drives, old CDs, and computers seized during raids on Epstein's properties in Florida, New York, and his private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Among the photos now circulating are images involving former President Bill Clinton. In one widely shared image, Clinton appears in a hot tub with a girl whose face is blacked out. The Justice Department says that redaction was done to protect a victim of Epstein's abuse. Clinton has never been charged or accused by law enforcement of wrongdoing related to Epstein. His spokesperson insists he cut ties with Epstein before the crimes became public and says the focus on old photos is a distraction. But the files go far beyond photographs. Newly released FBI interview notes reveal deeply disturbing testimony from a witness who described Epstein asking to see girls' IDs, not to protect them, but to confirm they were under 18. The notes describe Epstein being frustrated when girls were too old, insisting he be brought younger ones, and instructing associates to keep looking for girls. The witness also described racial preferences, emotional breakdowns during interviews, and sexualized interactions involving topless girls. The release also exposes chaos in the redaction process itself. Faces blacked out in one photo appear fully visible in another. The Justice Department has admitted the scale and speed of the release made errors inevitable. And still, questions remain. Why are some files missing? Why are others almost entirely redacted? And why, amid all this supposed transparency, does a file linked to Trump simply disappear? These documents were meant to close a chapter. Instead, they suggest the Epstein story is far from over, and that what's missing may matter just as much as what's been revealed.
What you are about to hear is not rumor. It is not speculation. It is written in court documents so cold, cynical, and deeply disturbing. According to newly released files, sex offender Jeffrey Epstein didn't just abuse minors. He checked their IDs. Not to protect them, but to make sure they were young enough. A victim told police in 2019 that Epstein demanded proof of age because someone had messed up by bringing girls who were too old. Interview notes describe Epstein personally asking for identification, doubting what he was told, insisting on confirmation. The words are chillingly direct. All below 18 went to JE. The same victim described his explicit preferences. Epstein did not want girls who were older, too dark, or Spanish. He was not happy when one was brought to him. She was ordered to keep searching. Keep looking for girls. Epstein reportedly told her, "You know what I'm into." She understood exactly what that meant: young, petite, underage. The documents don't stop at testimony. They include images. One of the most disturbing photographs shows Epstein sitting topless on a white sofa next to a young child. Only the child's legs are visible, a small feet in block Crocs resting on a nearby chair. Inside Epstein's New York townhouse, investigators found artwork and photographs featuring children. A life-size sculpture of a seated schoolboy stood inside his mansion near Central Park. Dozens, possibly hundreds, of images of scantily clad young girls were catalogued. One entire folder labeled simply "nudes." All images blacked out by the Department of Justice. Then there is the birthday card. Page after page filled with images of young girls, some appearing to embrace Epstein. Speech bubbles read like something pulled from a nightmare. Once upon a time, there was a clueless little girl. Elastic. References to blue eyes and little teeth. This was not affection. It was ownership. The files also reveal Epstein rejected monogamy altogether. He believed being with one person was unhealthy. Instead, he wanted to create a harem. Girls he groomed. Girls he paid for. Girls he manipulated with money, schooling, cash, and gifts, including an ancient Egyptian gold ring. One victim described the process clearly. "I trusted him. I believed what he said," she told investigators. It was all mind control. And when that control was threatened, Epstein allegedly resorted to intimidation. Epstein himself appeared to admit he made girls strip at knife point. A photographer claimed Epstein took photos of her sisters, aged 12 and 16. When she attempted to speak out, the threat was unmistakable. If she told anyone, he would burn her house down. These are not anonymous whispers. They are documented records. Released by the Trump administration. They expose not just a predator, but a system of abuse fueled by power, fear, and silence. And they leave behind one unavoidable question: what will be done now that the whole wide world knows?